Okay, freaking, let me tell you a story, chat, because getting to this point was so much freaking harder than it should have been. Like, over the last few months, also, yes, before I get into that, yes, Draco, I did get that problem fixed. Hello, Weasel, yes, we're playing Ratchet and Clank. No, True Blue. My PS3 better not explode. But, over the last few months, starting around, what is it now, July, or end of July, so probably around the start of April, I want to say, give or take, I decided out of nowhere that I wanted to play all of the Ratchet and Clank games, well, all the main ones, because I had only ever played a little bit of Deadlocked with a buddy back in, like, middle school, and then I bought the PS4 one when it came out, like, the reimagining, and I didn't like it very much. Like, the gameplay was great, obviously, but story left a lot to be desired. I googled why I felt that way, and to no surprise, I think everybody who's a Ratchet and Clank fan knows the problems with that one's narrative. But, so then I bought Rift Apart, day one, absolutely loved it. So, like, I knew I liked this franchise, I just hadn't had a chance to play it. So, around April, I had decided I wanted to get all the games, all the mainline ones. So I went out to, I can't even say local because it's like a 50 mile drive, but I went to a used game store I like, and I picked up the first 4 games on PS2, so Ratchet and Clank Going Commando, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, and Ratchet Deadlocked. And I got home, and my PS2 didn't work. So a while back, before this, I had to replace my PS1 because my big old fat boy PS2, his laser was getting weaker and he stopped being able to read PS1 games. This was around the time I had streamed Mega Man Legends 1 on the channel. So I had to replace the PS1 at that time. That should have been a sign that the PS2's laser was getting weaker and I needed to replace the whole thing. But big old dum-dum here didn't pick up on that, so by the time I got to Ratchet and Spank, it died all the way. So the next day, I got to drive back 50 miles to go pick up a new PS2. Great! So I got the new PS2, brought it back home, after also getting an HD adapter, so I could, like, the AV adapter thing. And yes, the Sega consoles broke too. I had to go. It took a 3rd Sega Geneceptipod before, like, I had a working Genesis, so on top of all of this. But, so, then I get started. I play Ratchet 1, never want to touch it again, ever, and maybe on challenge mode, but never from scratch. Played Ratchet 2, played Ratchet 3, played Deadlocked, loved them all. So then, alright, time to move on to the PS3 games. So I went out, and I got Tools of Destruction, and they didn't have a Kraken Time or Nexus, so I had to get those ones online. And I make it about halfway through Tools of Destruction, and that's about the time I made the tweet poll, like, hey, I've been binging all of these, should I stream this one? I know it's a lot of people's favorites, some consider it the best it's ever had, some people consider it the beginning of the end, depending on who you are. So, should I stream it, and then, that came out pretty positive, people wanted to see me stream this, so I was like, alright, and then I went back to go finish Tools of Destruction so I could move on to Quest for Booty, and then I get all the way to the last planet and a half, and I decide to start collecting the Rhino parts, and then my PS3 motherboard overheats. It doesn't just overheat. It overheats so specifically that the entire PlayStation 3 is actually fine, except the part of the motherboard that handles picture output. So the hard drive, the controller, the wireless, everything is fine. It just won't even attempt to display picture anymore. Well then, so I had to replace it, and this is right after buying the funny adapter thing I'm using here too, because PS3 has a built-in HDCP, so capture cards don't work on it. Luckily, that can be bypassed with a simple HDMI splitter, So pretty much the second I bought that is when that PS3 died. So then I had to buy another PS3. And here's where it gets even better, because I drive that 50 miles back home, I set it up, I go to log in, and I don't know if about a year, 3 or 4 years ago, Sony started doing this thing for their older consoles, where you have to have a specific password for like the PSP, the PS Vita, and the PS3 if you want to log into them. And I had done this on my old PS3 when I started Tools of Destruction without issue. But within that time, Sony updated their policies. And now you are required to have the two-factor authentication. Big ol' dum-dum here didn't know that. So, if you tried to log in without the two-factor authentication, it would bring you to the page and tell you need to generate a password. And then you go, generate the password, and then you go to log in with that new password that you just barely generated. And instead of taking it or telling you don't have two-factor, it just loops you back to the generate password page. I did this for 3 hours. I got on the phone with Sony's technical department. Absolutely nothing. Like, they didn't know what was going on because I guess it slipped their mind. I got back in contact with the used game store, and love those guys. They're the best. I ended up driving back in, still not knowing that it was the authentication problem, but they tried logging in on some of the extra models they had there, and were able to log in and get it. So it's like, all right, I'll come switch for that one. And so I get back and I'm like, hey, can I log in while I'm here just to be sure? I mean, if it doesn't work, you can just factory wipe it again. No harm, no foul. And they're like, yeah, of course. So we spent an hour and a half in the store trying everything we possibly could, with other customers coming in and offering suggestions to try and get this damn thing to work. Until it was finally like, maybe set up too fast. I dragged my buddy with me too, that poor man. And then it finally figured it out. So we were able to get all of that to work. And by this point, you know, it had been a week or two since like that crash happened, because I had to wait for them to get I had to wait for a paycheck so I could actually buy the PS3. And so by this point, you know, I finally get it to stinking work, get home, and it won't connect to the internet. And I'm about to lose my mind till I realize this thing was built in 2006 and is not compatible with my 5G internet. Which, luckily, I have 2 internet sources. We have a 2G here as well. So I was able to connect it to that one and re-download my save data, so I didn't have to start all the way over. And so, you know, was able to download my save data, finished Tools of Destruction, finished Quest for Booty, and here we are. The gigantic freaking nightmare that I had to go through just to play this one damn game, man. Is hilarious. But, with all that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and start this. And I actually am recording this whole background part just for this little rant, because I plan to upload this later. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go to twitch.tv/excellentexcels if you want to watch the rest of it, because I am not archiving this crap after all the crap I went through just to play the game. That's so much more work. I'm sorry. Look forward to more Dragon Quest stuff. See ya, YouTube end.